Hello there, thank you for staying with us and welcome to Channels Beam. I'm Victor Matthias. Now, the House of Representatives rescinded its decision on three bills that it discarded at a constitutional amendment session and will now reconsider when it reconvenes. The decision came hours after women protested across three states on International Women's Day. It was the second of such protests within the week. Now, today on the program, we will take a look at the bills thrown out, the rescinded ones, and the ones the House still maintains its stand on. And joining us to take a look at all of this, we have some guests joining us, some females, and of course a male. And it's just going to be a conversation around all of this. But before we get into all of that, let's first of all take a look at the trending topics in the past week.
Following the death of Oluwabamishi Ayinwole in a BRT bus, Nigerians took to their accounts to mount pressure on authorities to ensure justice is served. Though the driver of the bus has been arrested, paraded, arraigned, and remanded alongside one other, Nigerians say more needs to be done to ensure it doesn't happen to another innocent citizens henceforth. After a breakdown in talks between the Academic Staff Union of Universities and the federal government, Nigerian students will have no choice than to be at home for another 2 months. Also extended his warning strike after the union's executive council meeting, which held at its headquarters at the University of Abuja, in the nation's capital.
Well, there you go. Those were some of the trends in the past week. But joining us to look at today's topic, we have from our Abuja studio, Olubumi Ayontunji. He is a legal practitioner, a legislative draftsman, and a child education advocate with an unwavering interest in public policy. We also have Mariam Loshi. She is a communication specialist, an advocate for youth and women's rights in Nigeria. She works towards ending inequalities and believes women and youth will play critical roles in making Nigeria great again. And also joining us is Ebere Ifendu. She is the president of Women in Politics Forum. It's a pleasure to have all of you today join us on the program. All right, Mariam kicks out this conversation for us. Again, happy International Women's Day, even though it has passed. So, let me just say happy International Women's Month. But, you know, what was the reaction you got? I mean, how did you feel when you got the news that the House of Representatives is taking another stand, you know, as regards some of the bills that were initially dropped during the constitutional amendment sitting on March the 1st?
Well, it was really reassuring. Representatives are hearing the voices of the ones that they represent. So it was definitely disheartening in the first place to find that so many basic rights that women are asking for that wasn't in our constitution were being, considered and then rejected at some point. So it seemed unfair. It seemed honestly unreasonable looking at what were, and it's only right that the House of Representatives is able to listen to the voices of Nigerian women right now.
We have a little bit of a challenge with Miriam's internet, and of course that's why we can't hear her. But maybe coming and save the day for us. You pretty much, you were at the forefront. You were there protesting at the House. How does it make you feel now? I mean, that we are where we are at the moment.
Well, for me, there's nothing yet to celebrate because, we run a bicameral legislature.
Yeah.
And so if the House of Representatives will rescind on the three bills and the Senate is not doing so, we've not achieved anything. That's the truth. So until the Senate comes up to tell us that, okay, they will work with House of Representatives on those bills. Yeah. So it's not yet Uhuru, there's nothing to celebrate. And that's the reason you still see women, occupy the National Assembly, because it's nothing to, celebrate for us. And besides, for me, it's very embarrassing that we're even in this situation as we are today, because why would anyone vote against citizenship? I mean, what is wrong for a Nigerian woman to give foreign spouse Nigerian citizenship? What is anything wrong with that? What's wrong with a woman having indigenship of her husband after 5 years of marriage? You see, most men are actually married to women outside their communities. And then a woman will marry a man. She will lose her rights in her paternal home. She will also not have any rights in her husband's place. And so where does that place a woman? So for me, these are bills that we shouldn't be talking about. They should come naturally. And National Assembly should have been happy that women presented those bills. And I'm still wondering why National Assembly will not vote on the special seats for women. When we talked about affirmative action for seats to be created for women, they refused. They wanted us to, create a kind of special seats. They called it specific seats because we had a kind of understanding with them. There was a lot of advocacy that went into the bill before the Right Honorable Nkiru Konye-Ijeocha came out publicly, to announce the bill. And then surprisingly, we had men that co-sponsored the bill. And shockingly, some of the men that co-sponsored the bill, they didn't even vote for it. So you begin to wonder, do they really understand what these things, mean? Why would you co-sponsor a bill you do not understand? Or if you do, why at this point feign ignorance of what you co-signed? So there are so many issues attached to what we are going through. Yeah, is it ignorance? Is it that? Is it illiteracy? Is it lack of understanding? One cannot explain. So this is the reason we need to have a discussion with the National Assembly, leadership of the National Assembly. Yeah. We need to understand why they took the decisions that they took.
All right, very well. I'll come back to you on some of those things you raised, but let me quickly go to Olubunmi, who is in our Abuja studio. He's a seasoned legislative aide, with years of experience in formulating, writing some of these bills and, for his principles. Olubunmi, again, thanks for joining us on the program. Like she said, it's not yet Uhuru, it's not yet, there's nothing to celebrate, with the stance that has been taken by the House to relook at some of these bills that were thrown out on March the 1st. But apart from all of the things she's talked about, she says clearly there's the need, to have this engagement with the House of Representatives. But what more can be done to ensure that when the House sits again, these bills will be passed, and also the Senate would even also reconsider their stance, if they haven't made any, regarding or pertaining these bills?
All right, first, thank you very much, Mr. Victor. Sure. First of all, I think I would agree with Ebere on saying that it's not yet Uhuru at all. One, because the Senate has not issued any statement as regards rescinding their earlier position. And secondly, the leadership, or let me say the Speaker or the Senate President, as it were, they are just primus inter pares, first among equals. They only have a vote in this whole card. There's a need to specifically get the commitment of members of the House of Reps and the Senate. But going away from there, and I also want to correct a notion here by saying that when you say some men or some distinguished senators or honorable members co-sponsored the bill and did not support it. The last I checked, the mode of election was secret balloting. So we do not know, in essence, the elected representatives that voted for or against the bill. That being said, I think that if the Senate or the House of Reps actually take on their promise as made, that they would recheck these bills, there are three things that I'm proposing that women groups and the advocates that are protesting for these rights, which I agree with, should do. Number one, I think that they should engage the leadership of the National Assembly to be observers on the day the votes will be taken. It's sad that on the day the votes were taken on the floor of both houses, I do not think we have observers We do not have representatives of critical stakeholders seated in the gallery of the National Assembly. I think one of the pressing demands they should make is to observe the proceedings of the House that day. Number two, I think also that there should be a massive lobbying process to make the election an open ballot system, as against the parliamentary rule of secret balloting system through electronic balloting. I think there's a need to name and shame. There's a need to name and shame representatives that are for, to praise the representatives that are for and the representatives that are against. There's a need to actually make Nigerians know how these systems are being rigged or supported. And number three, every parliamentary process in the world or every process to push for a bill or a policy document requires massive lobbying, especially bills that are controversial, quote and unquote, sadly, like this one. There's a need to engage legislators one by one. As far as I'm concerned, my principal, Senator Tolu Odebi, voted yes. However, we didn't get any memo or any visit from any women group or anybody conscientizing him or any of his colleagues that hold ethnic or cultural or religious reservations against the bill. Yeah. We need every bill, as with every bill or every parliamentary process, as I've said earlier, there's a need for massive lobbying. We heard that there were the senators and the members of House of Representatives that pushed for the bills actually lobbied. But there's a need to, the problem here is that there's an ethnic, religious, and ethical belief from the I'm being careful with my words now, from the representatives and senators that are opposed to the bill. There's a need to get notable Islamic clerics, for example, to be involved in this whole process. There's a need to leave the gate of the National Assembly to come into the National Assembly to approach offices of private legislators and conscientize them to support this bill. Yes, we would say that is there a need for us to conscientize or lobby before the National Assembly will recognize fundamental human rights. Yeah. But now we are here, and the bill is controversial. There's a need to engage them and get their commitment personally.
All right,
for now, I do not see... Hello?
Yeah, I'm like, let me just hold you. You were going to say something. For now, you do not see how this is going to, pass through. We don't follow
for now,
all of,
I do
all
not
of this
see
steps.
any progress on ground as regards that.
All right, let me quickly bring Mariam Loshi back. Let me quickly bring Mariam back into the conversation. We lost her earlier on, due to a glitch in her internet. Mariam, again, it's good to have you back. So, we've pretty much, kind of moved forward as to, what we're feeling at the moment. But Olubumi is talking about, some other things that can be done. It's talking about lobbying, talking about, engaging the National Assembly leadership, talking about engaging religious leaders in this struggle. Let me call it a struggle now. But what are your thoughts on that? Do you think these are right steps to be followed, if at all, the National Assembly would do what is expected?
Yes, so advocacy and lobbying and all the efforts that have been put into passing the gender bills or even introducing them didn't just start today. Women, even within the National Assembly, towards religious leaders, traditional rulers, all of this work has been going on for a minimum of 10 years. So it's not something that the women are going to try to start doing when they've been doing it for a very long time. There is just a fundamental issue in the mindset of the people representing us and also the people who need to make demands for what they're representing us for. At the end of the day, these bills cannot be passed without the members of the National Assembly being willing to understand the plight of women in Nigeria and to take the necessary steps to change the course of history for Nigerian women. So these are, to me, the most important thing is that members of the National Assembly can change their mindset when it comes to issues that affect women, passing bills that make a better life for women in Nigeria and make Nigeria a better place in general that is hospitable to anybody from around the world. So to talk about lobbying, it's been done before. A constitutional amendment process is not straightforward. It's not easy. There are so many steps that need to be taken, but I know that women are taking these steps. It just boils down to the fact that in the National Assembly, we need more support from parliamentarians.
All right. I agree. Indeed, there is the need for more support from parliamentarians. But let me hold you there for a bit, and all the panelists as well. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back in a moment. Please stay with us. Many thanks for staying with us. We still have with us our panelists from Abuja studio as well as from other parts of the Federal Capital Territory joining us via Zoom. Ebere, let me come to you now. Let me get your thoughts on some of the things that have been said earlier on. Mariam agrees with Olubumi on the fact that, some form of lobbying needs to be done. And Mariam goes on to say that, lobbying has been going on for like the past 10 years. But in your own view, what do you think? How do you think we can lobby further? Because if you recall, the wife of the president, the wife of the vice president, all even witnessed at some point, proceedings just give that support and also ensure that the gender specific bills have some form of support. But even at that, the legislators voted the way they did. So what more can be done? What other kind of lobbying can be done to ensure that the legislators vote in that regard when the time comes, of course? I think your mic is on mute. If you'd kindly unmute it, please.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
So I said I agree with Miriam. It's just about mindset because we have lobbied, we've advocated. I mean, we started with the National Assembly themselves, leadership of the National Assembly. We reached out to traditional rulers, like he pointed out. We reached out to religious leaders. We also reached out to the state legislators. So I think we've covered every ground. So it's about mindset. And I think that's the reason we have to
so if I may quickly come in, Ebere, I mean, if you've done all of this and we're still where we are, what kind of approach? Is there going to be like a change of approach?
Well, I hope there will be a kind of a discussion with the leadership of the National Assembly. We really want to understand them better because if at this point we are still going back to be talking about lobbying and advocacy and the rest, and honestly, I'm at loss because we've done that over the years. And then we got to a point that we thought we've reached a compromise with them. We were at the committee level before it was voted. We were there. We had discussions with them. We had an agreement. So the problem here is we want to really understand their mindset. What do they expect from us? And what do they understand about our bills? Because I think the major problem is understanding what this bill stands for. It's not just for us as Nigerian women that are advocating for them right now. It's actually for the future generation. And it will affect their children also. It's not just about us. It will affect, I mean, everyone is affected. It's a human rights issue, actually, even though we call them gender bills, but they are human rights bills, So we need the National Assembly to, bring us into their thoughts. What do they do? Why did they do, what they did? How did they vote? What formed their understanding for them to have voted against these bills? All these things will come actually from them. So until there's a table discussion where they will give us their perspective, while we give them our perspective, I do not really understand the kind of lobbying again that we expected to do, honestly.
So yeah, I mean, and one of the reasons, that Olubimi raised was the fact that, you need to engage the traditional and religious leaders. What was their body language? Because I believe strongly as well that, culture and religion, I think, plays a part in all of this. So when you engage them, what was their body language? What did they tell you? And, did they show any sign of engaging the legislators to ensure that, what agreement you might have reached with them, would reflect in the way the legislators voted?
Yeah, our major champion in this regard is the Emir of Kefi. who took it up, to reach out to legislators. He talked about, having women participate in politics and in governance. He's not the only one. We have other religious leaders amongst the Christian religious leaders also, and Islamic religious leaders. We also talked to the traditional rulers, like I said, and they came out boldly and openly, to speak in favor of our participation.
All right.
And they also gave us the understanding that they will reach out to legislators from their domains, and that they did. And from the legislators themselves, they also gave us assurance. In fact, what they even had against this specific seat was, when they talked about not being able to give 2 slots, that is for House of Representatives. We were negotiating on having 1 senatorial seat and 1 House of Representatives seat. There was no time and discussion that it would not pass came on board. It was a matter of the number. Should we, have 2 House of Representatives, or should it be 1 House of Representatives? So actually, we were looking at that such an amendment coming up, okay, and not an outright, voting out of the bill.
Okay. Let me quickly hear from Mariam. Mariam, you also talked about, how advocacy, things have been going on for the past 10 years. But is there any feedback mechanism or a tracking mechanism in place to ensure that, in all of the advocacy and all of the, collaborations and all of the lobbying, there is a mechanism in place to check, in a way that, things don't turn when it's time to vote?
Yes, so basically, I'm just going to do a quick reference to recent history on the Gender Equal Opportunities Bill. I think it was late last year that was also shut down in the National Assembly. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, men and women included, worked with religious leaders, really big-time religious and traditional rulers, to take out different things in that bill that was against anyone's religion, against anyone's beliefs. And they removed things like equal inheritance. They removed a lot of things that anyone would find offensive or not in line with their religious beliefs. And still, the Gender Equal Opportunity Bill was not passed. At the end of the day, for me personally, I'm going to be completely honest about it. Our leaders need to have a genuine care for Nigerian women. And without that genuine care for Nigerian women, they're not going to open the bill. They're not going to care about what is inside those bills until they have that passion to say, okay, I am going to be concerned about issues that affect women. And without that, nothing can be done. Religious leaders have been inside. Traditional rulers have been inside. Advocacy has been done. They have given feedback. Things have been removed. So what is inside asking that Nigerian women, for example, if they marry a foreign man, he should be able to become a Nigerian citizen, just as Nigerian men can make foreign women citizens? What is so difficult or against anybody's religious rules for that to be passed in the National Assembly? I don't think there's anything.
Well, I hope when it's time to vote, when plenary returns and it's time to vote, I hope they also feel the way you're feeling at this particular point in time. But I have to say thank you to you, Mariam, for joining us. You joined us via Zoom, as well as Ebere. You also joined us via Zoom also. But just in winding down in 30 seconds, Olubumi, give us like the closing statement. What should be done differently? How can they engage differently before the time for the vote comes? In 30 seconds, quickly.
Quickly, I think the term lobbying here is being misconstrued. And it's not even the amount of years that lobbying has taken place. For example, my principal is a first-timer. He's just been there for 3 years. He knew nothing about it, and he didn't need to be conscientized or lobbied before voting yes. However, there are newcomers like that do not even know anything about the bill, that needs to know something about the bill. I agree with the part where they said mindset, yeah? So what is being brought out like newly to change their mindset? What are the lobbying process again to change the mindset of these legislators? And to add again, the Gender and Equal Opportunities Bill was not shut down. It was sent back for review. It wasn't shut down by the House because they had issues, like Miriam said, with some of the terminologies used inside the legislation. Yeah. What I think should be done anew, basically for me, is that when we are voting on gender-specific bills, like these bills, we need an open ballot system. Let's even know the data of the representatives that are against the women, quote and unquote again. let's know, let's name, and let's praise and shame, like I just said. You know,
All right.
Women would need to go beyond that to still pressing for these things. And secondly, being on the floor of the House, we need to move from the streets to the National Assembly. They represent
All right.
us. We
Yeah.
need to be in their faces all the time, so that we can get appropriate results. This is not just for the legislators, that women that pushed for the bill. It's concerning every citizen, and that presupposes to say that we need everybody, all hands on deck in the
Okay.
National Assembly to see that this bill passes through, and that's if the Senate agrees to rescind this position, which I sincerely doubt.
Well, I hope that your doubts are actually cleared when that time comes. But hopefully, you know, with all of that, you know, with the House already making its position known, let's hope that when that time comes, things would be different than what it is now. But I have to say thank you for joining us on the program today. And that's where we are. Hopefully, by the time we come back after the Senate, the House reconvenes and look at the bills again, hopefully it would be a different ball game entirely. But for now, that's where we'll have to leave the conversation. Thank you so very much for watching. I'm Victor Matthias. Bye for now.